Hello guys, welcome back to the channel, and this is a video that I was hoping would never have to be made, considering how joyous the occasion has been following the release of Sky First Chapter, but I think the situation has just gotten to an untenable level. Now, I'm not saying this video will change anything. In all likelihood it will probably just get me blacklisted by Gungho themselves, but as a fan of the series, and as a collective group of people who love the work of Nihon Falcom, something has to be said. It ultimately comes down to Gungho Entertainment, the publisher for the Western release, for no discernible reason, not only making the game extremely expensive for certain regions, but also removing the game from some of those regions with no forewarning, even worse doing so when they had already put it on sale for a week. Now, a few of us had our suspicions about Gungho when they were first given the job of localizing and distributing Falcom's biggest release in years. Some of us had seen the issues with their handling of the Grandia HD collection, we saw their handling of the Lunar Remastered collection. It wasn't perfect. But as a fan of Trails, I wanted to believe they would learn from their mistakes for this one, because mistakes could not happen for this game. And I don't mean that as any disrespect to Lunar or Grandia, which are also beloved classics, but it goes without saying Sky First Chapter was a very important release for Nihon Falcom, and they needed it to be as close to perfect as possible. And for a while, it was. The Metacritic scores did not lie. Universal acclaim, overwhelmingly positive on Steam for both global and Asian versions, number 9 on Metacritic for the entirety of 2025. Sky First Chapter was up there with juggernauts like Silk Song and Clair Obscur. Falcom were getting the recognition they deserved, but overnight, that all came crashing down purely because of the Western publisher Gungho Entertainment. Now, I'm not saying that Gungho have been a disaster, they have done some good things. I personally think the translation is fine, some grammar errors here and there that can easily be patched, some terminology inconsistencies and pronunciation oddities in regards to terms like label, but for the most part I was happy with it. It didn't affect my enjoyment, like there were certain lines that sounded a bit repetitive from Estelle in particular as Gungho attempted to go down the more literal and faithful route for the script, but it didn't take away too much for me. They brought back the iconic voice actors from the original, Stephanie Scher, Johnny Ong Bosch, Michelle Ruff. All of those nostalgic names that brought so much joy to us over the years were back on board for this remake. Gungho also worked to translate the game into languages that normally would be overlooked. I'm not sure on the quality of those translations as I play in English at the end of the day, but they made an effort in some respects. However, they've also made some questionable decisions, which isn't a sin in isolation, but my main problem is that they've made too many questionable decisions for what is their first Falcom project. There's been issues with the digital release of the PS5 version. Those who had the deluxe edition weren't able to download the DLC until it was fixed. The Nintendo Switch 2 version, while cheap for an upgrade path admittedly at a staggering $1, is not up to par. The game on the base Switch runs better, and yet again Gungho said they're working on a patch for that. There have been delays in shipments for those who ordered the limited edition, or in some case the steel books, with the updates being given by limited run games, suggesting that production hadn't even begun before the game released. And I'm well aware of this delay because I was one of them. My steel book got to me 7 days after Sky First Chapter launched. And then there's the regional pricing issues. In short, countries in Southeast Asia, independent states, and Middle East North African regions have been priced out of affording the game. Those in Indonesia, for example, have to pay $60, much like the United States, which sounds fair, but then that's not taking into account the minimum wage discrepancy, which is obviously a lot different in Indonesia than it is in the United States. For a straight comparison, Clair Obscur comes to about 500,000 rupiah. Granted, Clair Obscur was launched at a lower price anyway, but Sky First Chapter was double that price at 1 million, which based on minimum wage for Indonesia is about half a person's monthly earnings. This is why regional pricing exists, so that those who come from less fortunate economic backgrounds can still enjoy the games. Gungho effectively ignored this for some regions, though it is worth mentioning that areas like South America actually came out better off. Another region that was also better off initially too was Russia, and this is where the pan drops. Those who were affected by the regional pricing started to point out the favourable situation for Russian players, as it was notably cheaper for them relative to others. From this, you'd think the normal response would be that Gungho looked to rectify the issue so that all players within their jurisdiction can play the game and not get fleeced at the same time. However, their response boggles the mind. With no warning, and after a week of the game being on sale, Gungho removed it completely from Russia, presumably in response to the issues that were being brought up. No notice, no message, no update, it was just gone. It's worth noting that Gungho are the only publishers who have done this as well. Falcom games published by Xseed are available in Russia. Falcom games published by Annoys America are available in Russia. The CLE version of Sky First Chapter is still available in Russia. The one exception is Gungho Entertainment. Why did they do this? Only Gungho know, and sadly, it has now started to affect the game itself, with the global version of Sky First Chapter dropping from a 94% rating all the way down to 77%. Now, I'm not a fan of review bombing, it's a thing that happens, but I don't condone it. Yet Gungho left no other choice. A prominent Russian YouTuber called deadp47, who is a big reason why the Trail series has grown in popularity in Eastern Europe, and a guy who had bought over 100 codes for his own community when the game was still available to buy, attempted, along with others, to contact Gungho so that they could reverse the decision. It has been radio silence from the publisher. Gungho effectively shut the door, and so there was no other avenue available. The publisher dug their own hole here, and I am confident in saying this, if they fix this situation, most of those negative reviews will be removed and the game will start to regain its high rating. This is all on Gungho. And here's the thing, this case of Gungho not even attempting to find a solution is not a new thing, because the exact same situation happened with the pre-orders with Clear River Games. Back when the steelbooks and limited editions went up, I pre-ordered my copy, got the confirmation email, and everything seemed fine. When I woke up the next morning though, I had a handful of messages from friends and an email from Clear River Games stating that they had cancelled my order in the middle of the night. If this was something even more popular that everyone wanted, there was a very good chance that many would miss out on their copy through no fault of their own. Clear River Games, and by extension Gungho, not only cancelled it in the dead of night, but again had no desire to try and find a solution. They punished the buyer for something that was their own fault. So this situation does not surprise me. I believe what has happened for Russian fans because I've experienced it myself in another situation. And it's just an all-round sad situation because this should be a momentous occasion for Nihon Falcom, one of their finest achievements in recent years, a game that they put so much care and love into, and one that was being recognised by many of those outside of the series. It was bringing new fans in. But the actions of a publisher are now taking eyes away from it, and I have no idea why they're doing it. Gungho only had to do three things: market the game for Western audiences, localize it for Western audiences, and distribute it for Western audiences. The quality of the game, the structure, the models, the progression, the story, the characters, the music, that is all Falcom's work. And if Falcom's work is at risk of being jeopardized by a publisher who should have no influence at all on how the game's received outside of doing what they're paid to do, then I will speak out. Forget the consequences. Look, I understand there are bigger problems than video games, I know. But if Annoys America, Xseed, and Clouded Leopard Entertainment have no issue selling Falcom games to Russia, then Gungho shouldn't either. This is not a case of sanctions or politics. This is a case of one company doing something they shouldn't, taking a game that many were looking forward to away for no clear reason. And I'd like to believe that the Russian fans are just like the rest of us. I'd wager many of them are against what is happening too. They're normal people, normal fans like any other. It doesn't matter about borders, language, or anything like that. The one thing we all have in common is that we love Trails and we love Nihon Falcom. That is a universal language that transcends all barriers. At the end of the day, we are not fans of Gungho. We are fans of Nihon Falcom, and I, as one of those fans, want other fans to be able to have the same experience as I do. I want this developer to be recognised for the amazing games they put out consistently, to be credited for the work they do. Like I say, I'm not sure if this video will do anything more than get me blacklisted by Gungho, but there are certain things you cannot stay silent about, and this is one of them. Hopefully, the community can come together here and convince them to change their minds.